Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Midlands online worship service. My name is Marcia McDonald, and I am the worship associate for this morning's service. If you haven't already, please type into the chat box who you are and who you have brought with you today. Unitarian Universalism is a welcoming and inclusive religion. It encourages us to keep open hearts and minds because our own experience, conscience, and reason are the final authorities in religion. It affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person and that we are all connected to each other and the earth. If you are visiting us today, a special welcome to you. We appreciate you spending some of your Sunday morning with us. If you have any questions, please let us know in the chat box, by phone, or through our Facebook page. Please look for the link in the chat to tell us a little more about yourself. If you've been attending for some time and have come to feel that this is your spiritual home and you are considering becoming a member of the fellowship, please contact our minister, Eric Severson, our office administrator, Wendy Altmeyer, or let us know of your interest in the chat box. If you have a chalice or candle at home and would like to join in our chalice lighting remotely, now would be a good time to get that ready. We will be including joys and sorrows this morning as we normally do during the service. You will want to find the participant icon to raise your hand for that. And we will move on now to announcements. You will see them on your screen. Next week's service, The Fiction of Climate Change, is on Sunday, May 2nd at 10:30 a.m. Many people respond more strongly to stories than to a data-based analysis of reality. Looming climate catastrophe has piqued the imagination of many writers. Consequently, climate fiction, or cli-fi, is now a genre. Is fiction the way to connect with people who deny facts? Let's explore this idea together. Fellowship member Jim Chrisman will be speaking. Virtual religious education begins at 1 p.m. today. The Building and Grounds Committee is meeting today at 2 p.m. On the agenda is planning for summer projects and the spring cleanup day to be held on May 8th. The fellowship website will be unavailable Friday, April 30th from 8 p.m. until the transition is complete. Wendy will announce via email and on our Facebook page and group when the new website is live. There will be a new password for members and friends to access certain areas of the website. You will receive an email later next week with the login information. Contact office@uufom.org with any questions. Our virtual serendipity auction night at the museum will be held on May 15th. The UUFOM COVID-19 task force is looking at ways we can safely reopen. If you've been vaccinated, please contact Maxine Getler. Further information, including information about submitting testimonials for the website, the Stop Hunger Challenge for the food pantry, information from the Mid-America region, and more can be found in our weekly Candle Flame newsletter or on our Facebook Friends group. After today's service, please go to uufom.org/Sunday feedback and provide feedback about today's service. If you would like a paper copy of any form mailed or dropped off to you, please contact Wendy at office@uufom.org or 989-631-1162 and leave a message. Watch your email for more announcements in our Candle Flame newsletter. During the spring months, the newsletter will be circulated on Fridays. If you wish to be added to our newsletter, submit an article by Wednesday at 5 p.m. Or if you have any questions about these announcements, please email Wendy at office@uufom.org. If you have a candle or chalice at home and would like to light it now, please do so. Please join in reading our chalice lighting words today by Tara Humphreys. Whether you are from the south, the east, the north, or the west, whether you were born into this faith, found it, or it found you, whether you feel at home or are still trying to find your place, whether you believe in God, are open to mystery, or still have no idea, whether you are unemployed, underemployed, cobbling things together, overworking, or in school, whether you are holding anxiety, grief, confusion, anger, hope, restlessness, or deep peace, Unitarian Universalism has a place for you. It is right here, and this chalice is lit for you.
Thank you, Marcia. Our opening words today are titled Famous by Naomi Shihab Nye. The river is famous to the fish. The loud voice is famous to silence, which knew it would inherit the earth before anybody said so. The cat sleeping on the fence is famous to the birds watching him from the birdhouse. The tear is famous briefly to the cheek. The idea you carry close to your bosom is famous to your bosom. The boot is famous to the earth, more famous than the dress shoe, which is famous only to floors. The bent photograph is famous to the one who carries it, and not at all famous to the one who is pictured. I want to be famous to shuffling men who smile while crossing streets, sticky children in grocery lines, famous as the one who smiled back. I want to be famous in the way a pulley is famous, or a buttonhole, not because it did anything spectacular, but because it never forgot what it could do. Welcome, and let us worship together.
Thank you, Reverend Eric. With your mics muted, please join Melanie Willison, Sandy Hay, and Reverend Eric in singing our opening hymn, number 16, "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple," with words by Joseph Brackett for an American Shaker tune.
Tis a gift to be simple.
'Tis a gift to be free.
'Tis a gift to come down where we ought to be.
And when we find ourselves in the place just right,
'Twill be in the valley of love and delight.
When true simplicity is gained,
to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed.
To turn will be our delight,
till by turning we come round right.
'Tis a gift to be simple.
'Tis a gift to be free.
'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be.
And when we find ourselves in the place just right,
Twill be in the valley of love and delight.
When true simplicity is gained,
to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed.
To turn will be our delight.
till by turning, we come round right.
Thank you, Melanie and Sandy. Our story today is an excerpt from You Have Everything You Need by Dr. Joseph and Nancy Parent, the 8th chapter in the book, A Walk in the Wood, Meditations on Mindfulness with a Bear Named Pooh. They introduce the story this way. One of the primary principles of the mindfulness tradition is the true nature of human beings is basic goodness, the simple appreciation of being alive. It is a perspective of richness and wholeness, that nothing in our fundamental being is flawed or missing. Mindfulness helps us recognize basic goodness as our own nature and develop unconditional confidence. Thinking about being kind brought Piglet to Pooh's mind. And since he had promised to visit him around mid-morning, off he went toward Piglet's house. Although he was now going somewhere in particular, he could still practice just noticing, capital N, capital J, capital N, on the way. He heard a cheep, cheep sound on one side of the path. There, in a nest of leaves and twigs, a mother bluebird fed 3 hungry babies. Pooh turned when he heard the scratching sound of 2 squirrels playing a spirited game of chase, scurrying up and down and around a tall oak tree. On he went, taking in the sights, sounds, and smells of the wood. Piglet was waiting outside as Pooh arrived. Whenever the two met, they liked to play the game play the welcome game of here and now, capital WGHN. What time is it? Asked Pooh. It's now, squeaked Piglet. My favorite time, said Pooh. And where are we? Said Pooh. We're here, squealed Piglet. My favorite place, said Pooh. What are we doing today? Asked Piglet. It's more like what I'm not doing, Pooh answered. Oh, I see, said Piglet, although he didn't really. Then what are we not doing today? I'm aimlessly wandering, capital A, capital W, he said. Just noticing what's here and now as I go on the way to nowhere in particular. Care to join me? Oh dear, said Piglet. You know how hard it is for me to try new things. I'm certain I wouldn't get it right. I'd better let you do the aimless wandering, capital A, capital W, for both of us, if it wouldn't be too much trouble. Pooh said, you feel like it's hard to try, but it isn't so hard to not try. And that's just what noticing is. And you're certain that you won't do it the right way, but there is no getting aimlessly wandering, capital A, capital W, wrong, since there isn't any right or wrong way to go. But what if I can't just notice? Piglet fretted. No need to worry, said Pooh encouragingly. You have eyes and ears and nose and such, and that's all you need to just notice. If you get a bit muddled in thoughts, seeing, hearing, smelling, or feeling will wake you up. But what if I forget to be here and now? Capital H, capital N, worried Piglet. No need to fret, said Pooh reassuringly. It happens to everyone. Once in a while, your thoughts may carry you away to there and then, or where and when. But your heart is always here, capital H, and now, capital N. So Piglet, you have everything already inside you, all that you need to just notice, to be here and now, capital H, capital N, as we wander along, aimlessly along. And Pooh made up a little encouraging poem on the spot. Oh, Piglet, you can do it. There's really nothing to it. You have everything you need. I'm quite certain you'll succeed. Well, Pooh, agreed Piglet, if you believe in me, then maybe I can too. Just then, Piglet stood a little straighter and held his head a little higher. I feel more confident already. Thanks, Pooh. You are a very good best friend indeed. And I invite you now to center yourselves and enter into a time of reflection, meditation, or prayer. Today's meditation, We Are Whole, is by the Reverend Beth Lefevre. We are whole, even in the broken places, even where it hurts. We are whole, even in the broken places, the places where fear impedes our full engagement with life, where self-doubt corrupts our self-love, where shame makes our faces hot and our souls cold. We are whole, even in those places where perfectionism blunts the joy of full immersion into person, place, activity, where good enough does not reside except in the silent longings, where our gaps must be fast filled with substance, accomplishment, or frenzied activity, lest they gape open and disgust. We are whole where we would doubt our own goodness, richness, fullness, and depth, where we would doubt our own significance, our own profoundness. We are whole, even in our fragility, even where we feel fragmented, alone, insubstantial, insufficient. We are whole, even as we are in process. Even as we stumble, even as we pick ourselves up again, we are whole. We are whole. I invite you to extend your reflection with this interlude, Loosen, Loosen, by musician Ali Halpert.
Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Holy breath and holy name. Will you ease this pain? Holy breath and holy name. Will you ease this pain? Loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. Loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. Loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. Loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. Loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. The weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. The weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. The weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go.
And Marcia will share our reading for today.
Thank you, Reverend Eric. Our reading today is The Invitation by Oriah Mountain Dreamer. It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for, and if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dream, for the adventure of being alive. It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you have touched the center of your own sorrow, if you have been opened by life's betrayals or have become shriveled and closed for fear of further pain. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine or your own, without moving to hide it or fade it or fix it. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own. If you can dance with wildness and let the ecstasy fill you to the tips of your fingers and toes without cautioning us to be careful, be realistic, remember the limitations of being human. It doesn't interest me if the story you are telling me is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself. If you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul. If you can be faithless and therefore trustworthy. I want to know if you can see beauty even when it is not pretty every day. And if you can source your own life from its presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine. And will still stand at the edge of the lake and shout to the silver of the full moon, yes. It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after the night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done to feed the children. It doesn't interest me who you know or how you came to be here. I want to know if you will stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. It doesn't interest me where or what or with whom you have studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself and if you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. Let's share now in an interlude, Bourrée 2 by Johann Sebastian Bach, played for us today by Melanie.
Thanks so much, Melanie. Perfect. Good. Perfect is the enemy of good. Perfect is the enemy of good. These words were attributed to Voltaire, the Enlightenment era French philosopher Francois-Marie Voltaire. We all have struggled at some point or another with reconciling perfection with goodness. But the people who come to mind as examples are legislators and writers. Legislators in negotiating bills for passage often must compromise what they might feel is a nearly perfect bill to something that is good enough to pass one or both houses. Writers, too, including me on Saturdays, must reach a point in their scribbling or typing when they give up the idea of perfection to say enough. It may not be perfect, but it is good, or it is what it is. Perfection is an unrealistic expectation. Who decides what is perfect anyway? And aren't there different standards for women than for men? And for persons of color than for whites? And for young than for old? Some might counsel us to seek excellence instead of perfection. A counselor taught me about unrealistic expectations many years ago, and decades of living have proven these lessons to be true. In a recent conversation, someone noted the expectation that ministers must be perfect all the time. My response was only half joking when I said, I try to model imperfection every chance I get. It is one of the things we ministers agree we must do. Model with humility our imperfection, our humanity. The pressure on all of us to be perfect seems to never end. It fuels the billion, maybe trillion-dollar weight loss, makeup, and fashion industries, for example. We sometimes fail to meet even our own high standards, high expectations. And one of the reasons we seek out faith communities is to help sort out our values, what's worthy of our commitments, and striving to be our best selves. Not all striving is bad. Early 20th century Unitarian minister, Reverend A. Paul Davies, said, I come to church, and I would whether I was a preacher or not, because I fall below my own standards and need to be constantly brought back to them. I must have my conscience sharpened until it goads me to the most thorough and responsible thinking of which I am capable. I must feel again the love I owe my fellow people. I must not only hear about it, but feel it. In church, I do. I need to be reminded that there are things I must do in the world, unselfish things, things undertaken at the level of idealism. I want to experience human nature at its best and be reminded of its highest possibilities. And this happens to me in church. Let me pause to say a few words about justice. Last week, I described our fellowship's social justice efforts and invited you to explore how you might live out your values in just one of 4 focus areas. Our second Unitarian Universalist principle affirms a world of justice, equity, and compassion for all people. And how do we get there but by striving? Driven by conscience, by our love and care and compassion for others, justice is one of those aspirations for which we must strive. It's one of those things for which Unitarian Universalism teaches us to strive. And every day as we do, we learn something new about ourselves and the dysfunctional and damaging social structures into which we were born. Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin was rightly convicted last week of murdering George Floyd. In our overwhelmingly white denomination and congregations, many of us rejoiced at the verdict of guilty, guilty, guilty. But Black, Indigenous, and other persons of color in and beyond our movement have pointed out this case was an anomaly. The Associated Press reported last week that out of thousands of deadly shootings in the US since 2005, fewer than 140 officers have been charged with murder or manslaughter. And before Tuesday, only 7 were convicted of murder. The pursuit of justice must continue. We must strive to change the systems that encourage, among other things, excessive use of force by police, particularly against persons of color. The problem, as I see it, is not that police officers are imperfect, exercise bad judgment, or mistake one tool of violence for another, as in the Dante Wright case. Of course they are, and do, and will, no matter how much training. The problem is that our institutions themselves are imperfect and must evolve or be reformed if we are ever to approach our ideals. Whether we wear a badge or not, we're all born into a white supremacist culture. Let's train officers not to make traffic stops of innocent persons on questionable pretexts. Let's create a culture in which officers do not believe that any and all physical force is justified in apprehending suspects. Let's encourage our legislators to pass the federal George Floyd Justice in Policing Act to combat police misconduct, excessive force, and racial bias. I believe that one function of our faith community is to teach and encourage this kind of striving, but also other guiding values, including our first and third principles, affirming each person's inherent worth and dignity, and accepting one another. Because life and human nature are complex, I submit that it is necessary to complement this assertion about striving for justice with the lessons from today's story. Dr. Joseph and Nancy Parent said this in the introduction: one of the primary principles of the mindfulness tradition is the true nature of human beings is basic goodness. It is a perspective of richness and wholeness, that nothing in our fundamental being is flawed or missing. Pooh Bear teaches Piglet that aimless wandering, capital A, capital W, or being here, capital H, and now, capital N, are perfectly acceptable, even necessary ways of being, at least part of the time. We need not worry about striving to please or impress others. We have everything we need inside us to simply be who we are, fundamentally whole and alive. The Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker once wrote, "Reverence and respect for human nature is at the core of Unitarian Universalist faith. We believe that all the dimensions of our being carry the potential to do good. Unitarian Universalists affirm the inherent worth and dignity of each person as a given of faith, an unshakable conviction calling us to self-respect and respect for others." I will just note that striving for justice will be necessary until this respect is received by all. So mindfulness or self-awareness are key to both living out our values and overcoming the pressure to be perfect. Oriah Mountain Dreamer described today how the superficial facts about us, how old we are, where we live, what we've studied, what we do for a living, how much money we make, matter far less than what we know and are willing to acknowledge about ourselves. Some of these questions may resonate with you or get you thinking or feeling. What do we ache for? Have we touched our own sorrow? Have life's betrayals opened our hearts or closed them from fear of further pain? Can we get up after nights of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and still do what needs to be done to feed the children? What sustains us from the inside when all else fails, when all else falls away? Can we sit with pain without trying to fix it? Stand in fire with others and not shrink back? Can we be with joy? Dance with wildness. Let ecstasy fill us up. Can we see beauty even when it's not pretty every day? Are we willing to risk looking like a fool for love, for our dreams, the adventure of being alive? Can we be alone with ourselves and like the company we keep? Can we live with failure and still stand at the edge of the lake and shout, yes? I've spoken before about my failure to pass muster the first time around and my return to the path of ministry. I believe it was life experience and self-awareness in part, which I gained over the intervening 20 years that allows me to stand before you today and call myself a Unitarian Universalist minister. No, I'm not saying, by no means am I saying, I'm all self-aware, I am woke. No. I am still in formation, still a work in progress. I model my human imperfection every day, whether I try to or not. But I am more aware of my flaws and limitations and strengths than I was 2 or 3 decades ago. Self-awareness has gotten me through some trials. It has brought me to here, capital H, and now, capital N. If there is any way that I or other leaders of our fellowship can help you in your spiritual growth or personal development, please let us know. It's why we are here. We don't have to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, in our shoulders and bones. We don't have to strive for perfection. We don't have to strive for fame. But if we do, perhaps it could be more like the fame of Naomi Shihab Nye, being famous as the person who smiled back to shuffling men crossing streets and sticky children in grocery lines. Famous like a pulley or a buttonhole, not because we do anything spectacular, but because we never forget what we can or could do. 'Tis a gift to be simple. We are whole, as Reverend Lefevre wrote in our meditation. Even in the broken places where it hurts, where fear impedes our full engagement with life and self-doubt corrupts our self-love, even when we would doubt our own goodness, richness, fullness and depth, our significance, our profoundness, even in our fragility, when we feel fragmented, alone and insufficient, even as we are in process, we are whole. I will admit it can seem impossible to set aside the time, the place, the will for meaningful self-reflection, but it is key to living more fully, richly, and deeply. Rather than strive to meet unrealistic expectations, let's begin at our center with our own self-awareness of who we are, what we want to be, what we want and need, and how we want to live. May it be so. Blessed be and amen.
We affirm the work of this fellowship and its mission with our time, talent, and treasure. We continue to rely on you paying your pledges and providing what you would otherwise drop in the collection plate. Please give as generously as you can, and may what you give bring you joy. Thank you for your generosity. Let's share now in an offertory adagio by George Muffet, played for us today by Melanie. Thank you, Melanie. Now, with your mics muted, please join Melanie, Sandy Hay, and Reverend Eric in singing our closing hymn, number 100, I've Got Peace Like a River, with words by Marvin V. Frey and Anonymous. The music is by Marvin V. Frey.
I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul.
I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul.
In my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul.
I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow in my soul.
In my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul.
In my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul, in my soul.
Thank you, Melanie and Sandy. Our words today are by the Reverend Dr. John C. Morgan. Let us bless and keep one another. Let kindness rule in our hearts and compassion in our lives until we meet again. Amen. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to everyone who helped make this service possible today. Following the postlude, we will have our virtual coffee hour. We invite you to stay to chat if you can. You may choose to stay in the main room and speak with me or join in a breakout room for conversation and fellowship. Our musician today, Melanie, will now play a postlude titled On the Playground by Nikolai Rokov. Please take this time of transition to continue contemplating the spiritual experience we shared this morning, or if you need to take a break before returning for conversation. Whatever you may encounter in the coming week, please know that the love of this community goes with you. Until we're together again, many blessings.